Goff.
Mr Speaker, could I begin by congratulating the 4 national speakers who gave their maiden speeches in the House this afternoon. I thought they were very good speeches, and I think the really important thing about a maiden speech is that a Member of Parliament shows their human side far more when they deliver their maiden speech than they do in any subsequent speech. And that's maybe a pity, because I think it would be a good thing if members in this House showed their human side more often. While I'm congratulating people, can I congratulate my colleagues, Penny Hanare, Adrian Ruafei and Jenny Salesa for very fine maiden speeches. I think that the nature of their contribution shows that they are going to be members of Parliament that will contribute a lot to this country, and I congratulate them. And looking to my right, I've got to congratulate the retreads, Carmel Sepuloni and Stuart Nash and Kelvin Davis. Now, I say that as a retread myself, sir. Trevor Mallard, Annette King and I all lost our seats and then regained them. I lost my seat to a man called Gilbert Miles, who subsequently progressed through 3 other political parties, and I thrashed him the second time. But I have to say, Mr Speaker, that losing your seat and regaining a seat gives you a true appreciation of the privilege it is to represent your community in this House, and it is character building. But, you know, after you've lost it once, that's enough character. You don't, you know, losing it twice is careless. So I've tried not to do that, and I really want to thank the people of Mount Roskill for electing me to represent them for an 11th term. That seems like a very long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago I feel that I was here giving my maiden speech, and I hope that I've lost none of the values that I came into the House with. And third set of congratulations, sir, go to yourself, to the Speaker David Carter, to the Deputy Speaker Chester Borrows, and to Trevor Mallard. Now, you, sir, and Chester are very fine gentlemen, I have to say. I'm not greasing up to you, sir. I'm genuinely reflecting my admiration for your integrity and actually, notwithstanding the fact you're on the other side of the House, we've done a lot of work together and it's been very good. Now, Trevor Mallard is really interesting. You know, Trevor reminded me of my teenage kids, well into his 50s, always testing the limits. And now we've had the man that tested the limits of the Speaker going from being the poacher to the game catcher. I always thought Trevor Mallard craved respectability, and I think this is proof of it. But I think Trevor also will be an excellent Speaker. He knows the standing orders of this House. He has a lot to contribute, and I look forward to that. Sir, it is a privilege to represent the most multicultural electorate in New Zealand in this House. And I want to thank the communities right across my electorate for their loyalty and support. Before the election, the Electoral Commission was unkind enough to move my seat from the Western Labor areas to the Eastern Blue areas, and notwithstanding that, they continued to support me with a greater majority. And I want to say it is a real privilege to be a member in this House. And if I have any advice to new members, it's the advice that I heard our Prime Minister Helen Clark give to Cabinet on many occasions. Every day in this place is a privilege, and every day it has to be earned. Always remember that being a Member of Parliament, you are not the important person, the position is the important person, and never ever ask anybody, don't you know who I am? Mr Speaker, at the last election, Labor MPs did somewhat better than their party, myself by more than 8,000 votes. And on this side of the House, we have to ask some questions about why that was the case. People supported and endorsed and voted back their local Labor candidates, but they did not support the party in the same numbers. And I think that whether you win or whether you lose, humility is a real virtue in this place. And I think Labor has to show humility, and I want to pick up what Shane Reddy told the House about listening. As a GP, one of the most important things he learned was not simply to talk to people, but to listen to them. And that is advice, good advice, coming from a new member to us on this side of the House, to listen to the electorate and to learn what they have to tell us. Labor has a proud history. We are, in 2 years' time, 100 years old. And I am really proud that the biggest changes, the most progressive social changes that have been made in the history of this country have come under successive Labor governments. But I also think that Labor has not only a proud history, but a proud future, provided we rise to the challenge of showing unity and cohesiveness and focus and being relevant to our electorates. So even after the time that I've spent in this House, it is time for me to learn, and it's time for our side of the House to learn. And I believe that when the electorate look at a government that has been in place for 9 years and perhaps is showing too great a sense of entitlement and arrogance, which even the Prime Minister warned happens in the third term, Labor will be there and show itself ready to take up that challenge and be relevant to the needs of our electorate. I want to, in the time that I have left, to talk about some of the issues that are really important, and these are issues that people raised with me on the doorsteps during the campaign. And the first one is the one of housing, because when you think about it, a stable roof over the head of your family is one of the most basic and important foundations for a good society. And I've got to say, in my electorate, which I grew up in, I was astounded at the number of places I door knocked that I knew used to be owner-occupied that were now rented. The people who are buying up the homes that were once owned by those who lived in them are the investors. And the dream for many of our people, including our own kids, of owning your own home is becoming more remote. You know, I listened with interest to what the maiden speaker said about the importance of family. Most of us in this House were really wise, Mr. Speaker. We chose our families well, we chose our parents well, and our parents gave us assistance and we give our kids assistance. But I think of the huge number of people in my electorate that would love to own their own home, but they don't come from families who are able to provide a deposit of $50,000 or $100,000 to give their kids a start in life. And I think it's really a sad indictment on what's been happening in New Zealand that more and more people don't think that they will achieve that goal. We have the lowest level of home ownership, I think, in 60 years. And I've always believed in that dream of owning your own home and the stability that it gives to you. And if you can't own your own home, and again I refer to Shane Reddy, because he said he was brought up in a state house. Great. That's why the Labor government bought in state housing for people like Shane, for people like the Prime Minister, whose family needed a hand up. And my electorate is built on state housing. And the great thing about that housing, Mr. Speaker, is that it's warm, it's dry, it's stable, and it's affordable. And I can't see that the solution to a housing crisis is to sell off your state houses, particularly when so many of them, as we heard from Trevor Mallard, are going to property developers and the private rental market. I can't see that that helps. What our kids need is stable homes and stable schooling so they can realise their potential. And ask the principals at my decile 1 schools and they'll tell you that they've got kids that are going through their school that have been to 5 or 6 different schools. Paula Bennett and Bill English were criticising Housing New Zealand. I read a report this morning from, yes you did, yes you did. Now listen to what I've got to say, Ms Bennett, because I think you'll learn from it. There's a study carried out, 10 years of state housing, and the families with children who were at the third of the national average incomes. And what did that show? It showed that the rate of admittances to hospital of tenants who moved from private rental into state housing dropped dramatically because of that big difference in the quality of a home life that you can build when you've got decent housing and good conditions. The kids are stable in their schools, they have better health, they do better, they realise their potential, they can achieve opportunity. I've heard a lot of speeches about opportunity, but let's create the conditions at the basic level where that opportunity is for all of us, that we are an inclusive society. Yes, we want people to achieve excellence. Yes, we want them to do as well as they can, but let's give them that opportunity. Let's give all of our kids that opportunity, not just some of them. And that, Mr. Speaker, is what Labor is about.
I call Paul Foster Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir